Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It is now 9 o'clock. I would like to call to order the Barrier Islands Government Council meeting for Wednesday, June 25th. Please stand for the pledge. Okay, we will do the roll call, starting with myself and going to my left. My name is David Will. I am the mayor of Reddington Beach.
Anne Marie Brooks, I am the mayor of Madeira Beach.
John Doctor, Mayor of Treasure Island. Good morning, Adrian Petrillo, Mayor of Sandy Beach.
John Bigelow, City Commissioner, Indian Rocks Beach.
Lauren Cornituck, City Clerk of Indian Rocks Beach.
Jan Wilson, Vice Mayor, Indian Rocks Beach.
Hillary King, Commissioner, City of Indian Rocks Beach.
Good morning, Sam Jenkins, SPC's Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions.
Jim Bubenheim, JBFX.
Rick Reinert, Express Employment Professionals.
Good morning, Barry Rubin, President, Pinellas Beach's Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, no.
Gary Burton, County Administrator.
Good morning, Larry Shear, Indian Shores.
Good morning, Nicholas Menchise, Town Councilman, Indian Shores.
Good morning, Tony Fabrizio, Pinellas County Communications.
Morning, Dave Connor, Pinellas County Communications.
Ashley Giovanetti, Pinellas County Communications.
Ashley Ierna, Indian Shores.
Tina Porter, Indian Shores.
Gina Johnson, Waterfront Realty.
Carla Bowling, Indian Shores resident and mortgage lender.
Bliss Huggins, IRB resident.
Christopher Hollins, St. Pete Beach citizen.
Michael Slattery, United States Geological Survey.
Francis Robustelli, City Manager, St. Pete Beach.
John Bordelite, Deputy Chief, Madeira Beach Fire Department.
Kathy Thornsberry, City of Bel Air Beach, City Clerk.
Christy Herrig, Reddington Shores.
Fred Irwin, Sandkey Civic Association.
Mike Howard, Council Member, Town of Indian Shores.
Margaret Carey, Interim Town Administrator, Reddington Shores.
Good morning, CJ Hoyt, Commissioner, Reddington Shores.
Larry Maynard, Commissioner, Reddington Shores.
Good morning, Bobby Shea Lee, and today I'm acting City Manager of Treasure Island.
Good morning, Jill Silverboard, Pinellas County.
Kelly Hammer Levy, Pinellas County Public Works Director.
Good morning, Brennan Clay, resident of Reddington Beach.
Hi, Ken Grimes, Fire Chief for Pinellas Suncoast Fire District.
Megan Blanchard, Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council.
Robin Gomez, City of Madeira Beach.
Taylor Davis, I am the Permit and Code Compliance Specialist.
Holden Pinkard, Madeira Beach Building Department.
Oh, they can use their microphones. Jay Super, Mayor, North Reddington Beach.
Tom Capper, Mayor of Reddington Shores.
Good morning, I'm Diantha Shear, Mayor of Indian Shores.
Denise Hausberg, Mayor of Indian Rocks Beach. Good morning.
Dave Gaddis, Mayor of Bel Air Beach.
All right, is that everybody?
One more.
All right.
One more.
One more? Okay.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Johannesson with the FMIT.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Robin. Can we get an approval of our agenda? Motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Can we get an approval of the minutes from our last meeting? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on to the treasurer's report. Mayor.
For the month of May, we had a beginning balance of $908.91 and an ending balance of $908.91.
All right, can we get a?
I move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
The treasurer's report is approved. Moving on to new business. We have our county administrator here, 2 meetings in a row now, to talk. Barry Burton, who's going to talk about beach renourishment, please.
Come on up, Kelly.
He's not getting out of it.
You don't want to hear from me, you want to hear from Kelly, and I understand that. So we wanted to come out here and thank you for having us because the county commission took a pretty historic move this last week when they approved appropriating $130 million out of the TDC funds for beach nourishment. Now, the issue of beach nourishment predates me and going on 7 years, goes back with Kelly and many of you, where we've tried to impact the Corps' policy that changed through an interpretation, through a literal interpretation of how they would look at these segments of the beach, and whether or not you had to have 100% compliance with easements. That we've now going on 7 years, probably, so it really predates me, so longer than 7 years, we've tried to impact that policy without success. I think that's the only thing in Washington that hasn't changed over the past 6 months, but it hasn't, and we've been completely unsuccessful. What we're proposing for you here today, and I think it is, I just congratulate the commission because we need to do something, and we've tried everything. That policy really does need to change, and we've heard the residents in terms of their concerns with especially with the easement language, and so we're going to continue that effort. Congresswoman Luna and also Senator Scott have been champions on this, but it hasn't taken hold, and we haven't been able to see that policy change or that policy interpretation back to the way it was for many, many, many years. And so we're here today as a temporary solution. This is $130 million. That's not sustainable over time, simply because of the cost and the nourishment occurring every 6 years. And that's without storms, So you have storms in between, like we did a couple of years ago where we put money down for dunes and things like that. That's an expensive proposition. So we still want to fight the good fight. But a year ago, we said we're going to try to impact this policy. But simultaneously, Kelly took the initiative to fully design and permit doing it alone. And so we were trying to go down 2 paths simultaneously, and we've come to that point where we had to make a decision because we keep hearing, it's like they put out a little sliver of hope, and so you're like, okay, do we pull the trigger and do it on your own, or do you wait and hope that that's going to occur? But the reality is if we didn't take that action, there wouldn't be sand on the beach and give you a level of protection for this fall. And so the commission didn't make that decision. We're going full board and a modified design, and I'm going to have Kelly speak to it, that will get us some level of protection now. And then, we'll continue to work at the policy level, in the years to come. So why don't I let Kelly speak to it, and then we can answer any questions, things that you have. We want to explain this, and so we're going to be holding some public meetings for people so we can get out in front and just explain what we're doing and what we're not doing. On July the 9th from 6 to 8 at Treasure Island City Hall, and thank you for hosting us, we'll have a public information meeting. On July 16th, it'll be an online one from 6 to 8. And then on August the 6th, we'll have another one from 6 to 8 at Bel Air Beach, okay? So those will be the 3 public meetings to explain the project to the public, let the public ask questions, and just trying to do a good job of communicate, kind of where we're at and the issues that we've been challenged with.
Excuse me, can we get that information to the clerks so that we can put it out in all of our
Yeah,
individual
absolutely.
newsletters?
We got half our communications team here, I see. And
Yeah, I
so-
see a lot of laptops.
And by the way, I want to congratulate David Connors. He's our new director of communications for the county, and but he didn't come far. He just moved desk, down the hall, and so but he'll get that information to you. But we want to do a good job of explaining to the public, and because there's there's an opportunity here. This is our project, and I know Kelly's going to touch on this, but I want to appeal to you because, a lot of you have been champions in trying to help us with these easement issues. There's still an opportunity for people to come forward and make this project better. Okay, if we don't have an easement, we can't put the sand on, but this is not the course easement. It's not going to have the language that says I can put a hot dog stand in your backyard, okay? This is simply a temporary construction easement for us to do our work. This is not the same thing, and that message needs to be heard by our residents because we have an opportunity. And as Kelly's going to say, once they're past your area, they're not coming back. So we have a window of opportunity to improve it. We'll do everything we can. We implore you to help us with that. But Kelly, I mean, she's going to go full bore on this thing and get sand done, but there's only so much we can do. So let's get her up here and then we'll answer any questions that you have.
All right, so good morning. As Barry mentioned, with the board's approval of that contract, I just wanted to explain it a little bit more because you guys you've been here for a while, you know what a beach renourishment project looks like. Typically, it's going to take anywhere from 12 to 16 months to get done. We don't have that kind of time. We are performing this beach nourishment project under an emergency authorization from the Army Corps of Engineers that we exercised during Hurricane Helene. All right, so we have 6 months. So this is going to be a 24-hour operation, 7 days a week. Right now, the current plan is for Weeks Marine. That is the contractor. They have subcontracted out part of the beach renourishment to Gator Dredging. You may be familiar with that name. They did Paso Grill Beach last year and also did all the sand post-Helene processing and placement of that sand in Paso Grill and Sunset Beach. So you may be familiar with that company. So right now, they are finalizing their schedule, but their current guidance is that they plan on Sand Key to go from north to south, with Gator Dredging going from south to north, and they're going to meet in the middle. Sand that will be placed on Sand Key is going to come from the offshore Barrow area that we typically use, the Egmont Shoals, that is just kind of west of Fort DeSoto. So it'll be pumped up to Sand Key, and then the sand sources for Upham, Sunset Beach, and Sunshine Beach are largely going to come from Johns Pass and Blind Pass Barrow areas. We will still need, because there was so much sand loss, we are going to need more sand on those southern beaches than we typically have placed in the past, so we will need some supplemental sand from Egmont Shoal to complete those projects. So that's generally the direction that they're going in. We're still finalizing everything. Obviously, we're in the middle of sea turtle nesting season, and that's created some challenges that we're navigating with FWC and Clearwater Marine Aquarium. It may require some sea turtle nest relocation, but we're working through that as well as some of the shorebird monitoring requirements. So all of that pre-construction work has already started. We started that once the board moved forward with the contract. So we had got ahead of that work. As Barry mentioned, as we start moving, I had a really great meeting on Juneteenth with the Sand Key Civic Association and a lot of the condos there, and talked to them, about the project and dunes and how to restore them. And we got a lot of things out on the table that I think there was a lot of misunderstanding on. They have solid easements up in that area. We don't have that everywhere. We do not have that specifically in Indian Rocks, Indian Shores, and Redington Shores. And it's going to create what we call a sawtooth effect, where in some areas where we have a long stretch, we can come all the way up and we can fully nourish that area, but then we're going to have to come out, taper out to the erosion control line, stay west of the erosion control line, and then come back in where we can. I don't like doing that. It's going to create low areas between the public portion of the beach and the person, if they have a seawall or a bulkhead or the edge of their yard, it's going to create a gully area. It could be inches, it could be a couple feet. So this is the opportunity now. We're proposing to have another signing event, and our communications team is working to coordinate another event to get folks out. We are at 70.5% coverage of easements, 70.5. That dashboard is online. You can go and you can see exactly where we have them, where we don't have them. If it's red, we don't have an easement. And I encourage the cities to talk to those residents. I encourage neighbors to talk to their neighbors to really talk about that, because we cannot place a grain of sand on private property without the rights, the necessary rights. Barry mentioned the Army Corps policy, and I passed that out to you. I want you to have a copy of that. We received that on Friday. And as Barry said, we've been working very hard, and I was led to believe that there were going to be some positive changes that came out of that with that policy, but that was not the case. While Congress did allocate funding to not only Pinellas County, but a number of projects around the state that were damaged by storms, receiving that funding is conditioned upon signing an agreement with the Corps that we will obtain 100% public access and use easements over the entire project limits. So that's what you have a copy of. And I brought some additional copies if any member of the public wants a copy of it. And we're gonna post it on our website, because I know that there's been a lot of criticism of the county of not trying and not fighting hard enough. And we have been fighting very hard and working towards trying to find some sort of middle ground with the Corps. And we landed nowhere. We are exactly where we were in 2015 when they first mentioned this to us. So I'm not exactly sure what more we can do. We are going to continue dialogue. We're going to continue trying to move the needle there while we're getting this project underway. But as Barry said, we can't afford $130 million every 5 or 6 years. So we're really going to need our community to come together on this. So I just wanted to put that out there as a plea to all of you, to the residents. We need your help. If we want this project constructed every 5 or 6 years, we have to do it together, because we've been fighting this battle and we're losing. I think that's about all I have to say at this moment, unless you have questions, but I just wanted to get you the general project, how we're going to start it. Our permit expires on March 6th, so we absolutely have to be out of everywhere by March 6th. And that's what the contractor's prepared to do. So it is going to be fast and furious, as Barry mentioned. I hope everyone can show us a little grace. Yes, we're going to disrupt your lives for a little bit, and then we're going to be gone. But we're going to need patience, and we're going to need folks to work with us. And please, if you're reconsidering that easement, contact us, signforsand@pinellas.gov. We will get it over to you for your consideration. I had a gentleman last night in Indian Rocks Beach reach out to me at 7 o'clock at night. I logged into my computer. I've got the easement. I sent it over to him. Whatever it takes, morning, night, Saturday, Sunday. I'm trying to help everyone get this done, and so we just need everyone to work with us.
Thank you. I'm sure the council has questions.
Yes, I have a question. First, I believe you just told us that you are providing sand in areas where there's no easement, and you're basically using the erosion control line as the don't go past this line with sand. The reason why I bring this up is because Indian Rocks Beach and Bel Air Beach have been in an unfortunate set of circumstances with Bel Air Shore throughout the entire project. Bel Air Shore has not received any sand because they have no public property that they can donate or provide public parking spaces with. However, whenever the project was first created, an erosion control line was established for Bel Air Shore. It's just that the Army Corps skipped over them because they had nothing to give, basically. because it really has nothing to do with them being a private community or anything like that. They just don't have any land to donate for parking. So my question is since you're unable to get easements on certain property, yet you're placing sand in front of those particular pieces of property anyway, wouldn't it make more sense and be more cost-effective to protect Bel Air Beach and Indian Rocks Beach by going ahead and putting sand in that mile stretch between the two communities? Because that's the very first place that we lose sand. The first storm that comes along, everything washes into Bel Air Shore, and then nobody has sand in that area. So I'm not asking, I'm actually begging to please consider nourishing Bel Air Shore for this one time. I truly believe that that is the best way to get the most bang for buck for your investment into beach nourishment.
All right, so a couple things. When the erosion control line was set, it required that the initial construction be completed within 2 years of it being set, and that didn't happen. So I'm not sure that the erosion control line is legally valid anymore. So that's the first piece of it. The second piece is our permits don't allow us to nourish in there because we're using, essentially what we're doing is we've taken the Army Corps' plans, their template, and we're constructing it. And because it excludes Bel Air Shore, I'm not sure we could even get a permit modification to fill it. I'm happy to ask the question. I'm happy to ask the question, but I just wanted you to know that it may be that the state of Florida doesn't acknowledge that erosion control line anymore, and if that's the case, that would be an impediment that we couldn't get past.
Yeah, and it's very unfortunate that it's the way that it is, because like I said, it's an unfortunate set of circumstances, something that was put in place way before beach nourishment was even conceived. And unfortunately, we are right behind Bel Air Shore. Half of our community is unprotected, 100% unprotected, because Bel Air Shore's never received sand. And Indian Rocks Beach and the north side of Bel Air Beach, like I said, they're the first ones to lose sand. And it always seems like such a waste because we lose our sand immediately with the first storm. So I appreciate you checking into it, and thank you for your time. Also, thank you for all of your efforts. Everyone here appreciates what you do.
Any other questions from the board? Nobody? I do. Well, thank you for everything. I know we've been dealing with this for a long time. All the meetings at Indian Shores, when the Army Corps was there and basically said no for 3 hours. So this project is being funded by the county.
Tourism Development Funds.
Right. So, and because of that, the easement requirement is different than the Army Corps' requirement. So it's a little less stringent, but an easement is still needed.
Correct. For the private property, yes.
Right. So is it possible in your communications to make that, bullet points as simplistic as possible? Because as you mentioned earlier, misinformation, education is always the key. There's a lot of crazy things going out there, and people, if we could just have facts that this easement is just for working at that time and then they're gone.
Yeah, we've been working with communications. We're going to get out a bunch of flyers to share with the communities within the project limits, so you can have them at your city hall. You can email them out to your residents, and they're just bulleted facts. Unfortunately, we're going to have a few gaps no matter what we do, because we have a number of property owners that don't want nourishment at all. And we have a parcel that's in litigation and no one can sign an easement. So there are, hopefully we can get past some of the folks who are, they still think it's, the Army Corps easement, and we can get past that. But we're still going to have some gaps where folks have just told us flat out, no, we don't want the sand.
Well, I understand that, but with the education of this easement is completely different, self-funded from the county. Thank you for the county for being our own savior, and hopefully that will bring some more people on board.
And I 100% agree with you, Mayor. We do need to make that simplistic, and to the point for people, and also explain we've got this window in time, to be able to make this
Right.
happen.
I'd like to have
So
something.
we're going to do that, and that's the reason we did those 3 public meetings, but you heard all the other things that they're going to do. And anything you think, if you think of something, say it, and we'll be glad to help, okay, in any way we can. So that's one thing. The second thing is, these gaps are the things that keep you and me and Kelly and everybody up at night. Because, it's like the drawbridge down, though, or the moat doesn't really help,
Right.
right? And so now we know we're going to go forward on this, but we know we need to solve this, over the next several years. And so we're going to look at congressional stuff, but we're going to look at every option available to us because we have to solve it. I mean, if we really care about our residents and what happened last year, nobody knows what would have happened had we had, but it certainly would have been less. The impact would have been less. And so, we really have to solve that one way or another. And so we need to look at all of our options and study those. The easiest thing would be to get a congressional fix, but there's these other gaps and stuff still need to be solved for. And so we need to look at all of our options.
Well,
over the next
hopefully
several
with
years.
this education, and when you put out your communications, that we can all have something to point to. When there's misinformation flying around, I can point to, here are the facts. Here is what is required of that easement. And maybe that will, like say, turn some more people or educate the ones who are just so adamant that there really is nothing to be concerned about, rather than you're getting some extra sand.
I mean, if you think about it, and I'm not saying anything to anybody that we don't know, but when we did the nourishment a couple of years ago, I walked with Gator and, they're putting in this nice, the berms and everything, and then you've got one property owner. I mean, and it's like, well, where the water's going. So the rest of the neighborhood is entirely at risk here, and that property owner is, probably has 5 houses and you couldn't find the person, and it doesn't matter when the storm hits.
Right.
Those are the things we have to solve for somehow if we really want to provide a level of protection for our residents. And those are the details that matter. So we're going to do this. We're going to do the best we can, but we got more work to do. And I think that's the message for today. But, we really, really can make this project better if we get to as many residents as possible.
Well, thank you for finding other solutions.
And we are, we've been sending out certified mail to people that haven't connected with us in one way, shape, or form. I mean, most everybody out there is at least said no. All right, it wasn't the answer we wanted, but we got an answer. But we have a whole bunch that the first-class certified mail is coming back. We're talking to the neighbors. The neighbors are saying, oh, that's a short-term rental. We don't really know who owns it. Then we're like going down this rabbit hole, and we are finding the maintenance person. And I'm like, do you know who owns this parcel? Can you connect us with them? It's like, no. So we're, anything that y'all can do to help us find who actually owns these properties, because I would think a short-term rental owner wants the beach out front of that property, but if we don't know how to reach them, short of hiring a private investigator, we haven't been able to find some folks. And that would be, if you all know the short-term rentals in your area, that would be incredibly helpful as well.
I have another question.
Of course.
At the last TDC meeting, Barry, I suggested possibly tapping into some of the resources that Visit St. Pete Clearwater has. Their advertising resources, because they're a monster. They do it better than anyone that I know, and they're able to just reach all over the world and bring people here. Is it possible that the county could work with them and use some of their talent to actually do social media campaign locally that's pointed just towards this area to, help apply some pressure and make people aware, because maybe the only way that you're going to be able to even get the message to them.
Well, first, I completely agree with you that they're the best there is at their social media and their marketing around the world. Brian Scott, Commissioner Scott, just came back from Chicago with them, and he called me and just in awe about the way in which they did that outreach and the visibility that they had into the folks that book tours and book groups, and and all the different places where people find that information. They really do have that talent. We have that talent also, and that's the folks back behind me with our communications group for locally. So I take your comment well, and they're listening, so we can figure out how we can do that. But I think it's a great idea. I'm sure they've thought about it, but let's do everything we can, and we've got the talents to be able to put resources behind this. So whatever we can do, I don't care whether it's them or Visit St. Pete Clearwater, we need to get the word out, and so however best we're equipped to do that, we'll make sure that happens.
Thank you.
All right, that everybody? Nobody? All right, well, thank you for being part of the solution.
Great, thank you, guys.
All right, next we have from the Florida League of Cities, Lindsay Johansson is going to talk to us about hurricane preparedness.
Right. I do have a PowerPoint. Yeah, it's right there. Yeah, right there, you got it. Thank you. All right, thank you everybody for having me. My name is Lindsay Johansson. I am with the Florida League of Cities, specifically the FMIT. So I'm the account executive for the West Coast of Florida, and I manage accounts from as high up as Ocala down to Everglades City. So work the whole West Coast of the state. And today I just want to do a little bit of a briefing on some hurricane season preparedness, which a lot of you are pretty familiar with. So I believe last week you had a speaker come and talk a little bit about that kind of topic. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. We do have an insurance summit every year. So this is partially from that summit where we presented this same topic. So you'll see that icon there. So the main objectives here are really just to discuss lessons learned from past catastrophes, as well as defining the risk management strategies that we recommend. So this is more of an insurance standpoint. So any insurance concerns we can also address towards the end. So we work with our partner, Synergy. Synergy for the FMIT is a disaster response and recovery team. They do manage claims from the point of the pre-construction and all the way through to the end. And your insurance companies probably provide a similar service. So before the hurricane and before we start hurricane season, it's always good to review your policy to look at the deductible structure. Many of you are probably aware you have an AOP deductible as well as a named storm. So the named storm deductible is going to apply in the case of a hurricane or a major wind event, and that's usually a percentage of the total loss. So usually 3-5%. We did go through a hard property market, so a lot of cities went ahead and elected a higher deductible limit, so that could be up as high as 7 or 10%. Just be aware of all these different important coverage provisions as well. We have PETO, which is property in the open. It's a sublimit in our policy, and I believe many of our other programs in the state do something similar, where you don't necessarily schedule every bench or a light pole, but you do have coverage for it as a sublimit in the policy. You also want to make sure that you have some level of mitigation coverage. So your insurance company will actually reimburse you for the mitigation and stabilization of buildings before they actually become managed through the city and begin the reconstruction process. So another important thing to make sure you're up to date with, or you're at least aware of when your last appraisal was for your buildings. There was quite an inflationary period, as we know, over the last few years. And so if you haven't had your assets appraised in the last 3 to 5 years, that's something you definitely want to take a look at, because come claims time, those buildings to then reconstruct may be significantly more than what they're currently scheduled for. Obviously, there are implications for underinsuring. You could be subject to a co-insurance penalty, meaning you insured a building for less than 80% of its actual value. Next would be a COOP plan, so a continuity of operations plan. This is something that's really important to review with your city staff. A lot of the times cities will have turnover or new people in key positions. So this is something important to go through every year as you enter hurricane season. And this kind of lists out some of those factors that you want to consider. Make sure you have a roster of the personnel that are vital. So a lot of the times with our cities that have significant hurricane activity, a lot of their staff is going to also be personally affected and maybe not able to work. So make, a contingency plan for some of your staff not being available, as well as alternate work locations, if your city hall or various buildings are not able to be used. So this is just important as well to share with the insurance company so they know who to contact. So this kind of goes through it a little bit more in depth. But you want to make sure that you have all of your critical assets prepared, as well as contacting your coverage provider and making sure you have those up to date in terms of the values. Also having power generation and fuel for critical buildings. So if that is your police, your fire, your city hall, making sure that you are prepared for those to lose power or be damaged. If they're going to flood out, possibly, prepare for that kind of mitigation. So pre-disaster contracts is also something that's very important. Make sure that you know who you would contact at FEMA. Obviously, that's down the road a little bit, but could be necessary if the damage is that severe. Same with debris removal, hauling, and things like that. Make sure that you have vendors prepared for that. Also, establishing a chain of command. So you all know who is taking care of what in the event that the city is majorly affected. So this is just talking about activating that COOP plan while it's in process. At the FMIT, we do send our Synergy team out to your EOCs. So they're actually stationed at your EOCs and they're prepared as soon as the storm passes to go out and start those initial assessments of the damage. They also will mitigate and stabilize your buildings. So some people have contracts like that, but we definitely take pride in having that all set up and ready to go in communication with our clients. Oh, one other thing that I thought was important here, crafting the narrative and making sure that you have a dedicated person to kind of communicate with the public, respond via social media and that kind of thing, so that you have a set person who contacts the press and things like that. Again, just kind of talking about how to monitor the status during the event. So afterwards, the biggest thing is documentation. So if you can get out to the sites that are affected with photos, descriptions of the damage, that is going to be extremely important, as well as keeping track of everything you're doing to mitigate. If you're tarping a roof or you're using a wet vac to get water out, all of those things should be noted for the insurance company to later reimburse you for it. One other thing is PPE for your first responders. We've had definitely down in like the Fort Myers area, Sanibel, Fort Myers Beach after Ian, there were quite a few claims related to, workers' comp claims related to folks from their utilities or public works coming out, getting infections from the water, the standing water and all of the bacteria that was there, getting into cuts and stuff like that. Make sure that your staff is prepared and has the proper PPE for being on site in some of these situations. So the faster that you can get out on site and get photos and a narrative created for the carrier, that's going to be the best way to start getting paid and getting claims paid out. So timeframe usually typically an insurance company is going to respond and get someone out there within 30 days. It depends again on your insurance company and how they contract out with other carriers or with other vendors. Relocation, a lot of people will have to relocate. So be prepared to have a temporary modular structure or work in a new facility, which many of you are probably aware of. All right, so when you have a claim, you're gonna either be below deductible, which means that there is no insurance coverage for it, and that's something you may want to submit to FEMA for reimbursement. Or if you're above your named storm deductible and is eligible for coverage, you kind of have two paths. And I believe this is the same with our other the other carriers in the state. I will definitely say it's true for the FMIT. We have, like I said, that Synergy program. And so that's an insurance managed repair program, meaning that Synergy manages the full repair. You pay your deductible at the end of that process. They are gonna come out and do the initial inspection. They're gonna give you the estimate for the damage, and then you can basically bypass the procurement process and they'll go ahead and start the repairs. We see a much faster repair process this way, and clients are a lot happier because they don't owe their deductible until the project's finished 8, 9 months down the road or a year. The other option is if you are eligible for insurance coverage, you manage it yourself. So the city then goes through a full procurement, which I believe is like a 3-bid process where you have to vet out the contractors that would do the repair, and then it's managed by the city, and you typically owe, lump sums as you go, as that is going on. The problem that does happen there is that if the whole area is affected, contractors are really backed up and busy, and so sometimes those recoveries are slower when the city manages it without their insurance company. So yeah, this is just kind of more of the same. So this is FEMA. I am not an expert on FEMA, but we do have, again, within our Synergy program, we have a group of people that work directly with FEMA, and so all of our forms are in the format that FEMA requires in terms of documentation, and it does streamline that process for FEMA. So these are, again, just some of the best practices. So we can open it up for a Q&A if you guys would like. I don't know if you have any questions related to the insurance process after claims.
Does anybody have any questions for Lindsay? After all that, you got it all? No questions?
I only have one question. Will you provide this PowerPoint to us?
Yeah, sure.
Great information. Thank you very much for coming and sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Well, all right, with that, well, thank
Thank
you very
you.
much for coming out here and always being available. Okay, moving on to the next item, discussion items. I have one thing. I am the representative for the Big C on Forward Pinellas. So unfortunately, my schedule doesn't allow me to give it the time that it needs. So if there's anyone here on Big C that would like to volunteer to replace me on Forward Pinellas.
When do they meet?
When
Do they
do
have a
meet?
scheduled, like a
Yes,
schedule?
yes, once a month.
I know, but I mean, is it the second
I will
Tuesday?
get that to you and then explain what it is all about if you're somewhat interested.
If no one else here is interested, we want to be represented.
Of
So
course,
if
yes.
you
Well, I would
could-
keep doing it, but I'm just saying if there is.
If you let me know what the commitment is,
Okay, excellent, we'll have that
I will see
discussion
if I can
afterwards.
make sure that works for my schedule, and I would volunteer.
Okay, and would everybody on the Big C, is that acceptable that the mayor? Mayor Brooks
Unless
would-
somebody else wants to do it. No?
All right, okay. Well, thank you very much. We'll have that discussion afterwards. Moving on to legislative update. Do we have anybody here who would like to give any? Excellent, please come on up to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Ashley Overend from County Commissioner Kathleen Peters' office. I just wanted to add on to Barry and Kelly's update and let you know that Senator DeSegli and Commissioner Peters have sent letters to Governor DeSantis. He was here Monday up in Clearwater for a bill signing event. And so, as I mentioned, even though we're set back many years, it's important to stay engaged with the governor's office since his resiliency officers left. And Governor DeSantis could serve as a conduit between the county and President Trump's administration to work with the Corps. So they had a brief conversation about that prior to the bill signing on Monday and have both followed up with letters. So we'll make sure to get you a copy of those as well.
Well, thank you very much for working on that for us. All right, moving on to city events. Let's start at my far right.
Yeah, and North Reddington Beach, Backwaters is going to be having a 4th of July party with drinks, little booths and games and a band. We'd like to invite everybody out to that. And then this Friday, we have a groundbreaking ceremony for our new EMT and fire suppression building to serve all the Reddingtons, so that's pretty exciting.
Thank you for mentioning that.
That's about it for us.
All right, great.
Same on the fire, we're going to that event also. Okay, and that's about all I have for right now.
We've spent a lot of time getting ready for the influx of our visitors next week. I think it's already started, judging from what we're seeing on the roads. But we are also planning a beach cleanup for the 5th of July, which is always sorely needed. So that's about it for Indian Shores.
Thank you.
We don't have any events coming up for 4th of July, and I think our next events don't start till October. But good news, we've got a new law firm, yay!
All quiet in Bel Air Beach.
Right, well, I was also going to mention our, this Friday, the groundbreaking for our new fire station that'll serve the 3 Reddington. So gold shovels, hard hats, the whole deal. All right.
Madeira will also be at that groundbreaking. And we have Friday, we have the 11th annual Sunset 5K down at Johns Pass. We have our fireworks are on the 3rd this year, and then we will have a beach cleanup on the 5th. So if you have nothing else to do on Saturday, come pick up trash.
All right, in Treasure Island, I have 2 things. The first being that we now have a city manager, or we'll be putting them under contract tomorrow. So that's exciting, and I think one of the biggest things that I'm excited about is that everybody was on the same page. Our charter basically said that we had to have a supermajority. We only had 4 commissioners because one was on vacation, and everybody stepped up. We all agreed, and we're moving forward. So we feel pretty good about that, and hopefully this person will be a permanent. We actually put out for a temporary for 90 days, and but we've kind of moved that out of the pathway now, and so we're looking forward to it. The gentleman comes from the Jacksonville area, and he's got a good experience. He's been military. He's served on the school board for 6 years. He was the school superintendent for 4 years, and then got involved with the municipalities over there, and that's how we found him. So we're thrilled to death about it, and moving forward. We will be having a July 4th celebration. The fireworks will begin somewhere between 8:45 and 9 o'clock. That's all I have.
St. Pete Beach, we're having a summer concert series on July 4th at the City Park at Horan Park. It's going to be from 6 to 9 p.m. It's going to be a funk band, so come and join that. Food and drink will be there as well. Thank you.
Well, as you know, Clearwater is a sleepy seaside town with no drama. But all seriously, June 27th, the Bay Care Sound at 6 p.m. We will be having the band Slightly Stupid with a special guest of Iration and Little Stranger. On July 4th, we will have incredible events. Clearwater Celebrates America. It will be starting at 5 p.m. featuring the Black Honkies, with fireworks at 9:15. We will have a rooftop party starting at 6 p.m., which will include a silent disco, games vendors, buskers, and food and drink. So we're looking forward to that.
All right, well, that's everybody. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, and we are adjourned.